Explore the unofficial world of DPRK-inspired apparel at NK News Shop. Dive into a captivating collection of North Korea-themed t-shirts, hoodies and more at the NK News Shop. From the popular Daedonggang beer t-shirts to the adventurous Air Koryo designs, each piece offers a unique glimpse into aspects of the DPRK you'll be familiar with. Featuring retro travel-inspired prints of Pyongyang's landmarks and brands, our apparel is 100% handcrafted in the USA. Support independent journalism with every purchase. Explore our range today at shop.nknews.org. That's shop.nknews.org. Hello listeners and welcome to the NK News podcast. I'm your host, Jacco Zwetsloot, and it's the 4th of March and it's snowing in Seoul today. So here we are. I'm in the NK News podcast studio together with Joon Ha Park. Welcome, Joon Ha.
Thanks for having me back.
You had a long weekend, as did I, and now we've got to get into it. There's a lot of stuff to catch up on. First of all, a U.S. aircraft carrier is in South Korean waters for the first time since last June, I understand.
Indeed. So the USS Carl Vinson, it's a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. It arrived in Busan just on Sunday, I believe, and it marks the first visit, as you mentioned, since Donald Trump returned to office. And it's seen sort of a direct show of deterrence against North Korea, kind of abiding by the Biden administration's strategic deterrence policies.
Right, and it's here for, trilateral naval exercises involving Japan and South Korea?
Well, reportedly it is expected to participate in trilateral military drills with the ROK and Japan, reinforcing the embedded security ties that were established during Camp David. But It's still undecided as South Korea hasn't yet to announce it.
Ah, okay. So the aircraft carrier is here, but we're not 100% sure what it's going to be doing or not doing and who with. Okay. All right. Now, North Korea did not wait long to issue a response.
No, they did not. And
it wasn't a welcome. They didn't hang out the welcome flag.
No, they did not. They surely didn't. And it was just a day after South Korea announced its arrival.
Yeah.
Actually, 2 days after. And they just released a statement this morning from Kim Jong Un's sister.
Okay. Now, we always know that has a potential for some hot language when Kim Jong has a statement.
Indeed. She is quite characteristically sassy. And she issued quite the warning to the United States, stating that North Korea is seriously considering, and I quote, escalating its nuclear weapons-related activities in response to U.S. military actions on the peninsula.
Okay, well, lots to unpack there, but the obvious question is, what would an escalation of nuclear weapons activities look like?
Well, that's the question. Will they go ahead with a nuclear test? Will they give out advanced ICBM capable of, reaching the United States? And, these Pyongyang, they often frame these kind of tests as responses to U.S. military actions. And, we can see certain tests brewing in the foreseeable future. But, North Korea has not conducted a nuclear test since, I believe, September 2017.
Yeah,
2017.
So it's done lots of rocket and missile and artillery tests, but this much vaunted, much speculated 7th nuclear test, we've been waiting for that one for 7.5 years now.
Indeed, yeah.
So if it did happen, and we're not saying it will, but if it did happen, that would certainly set the cat amongst the pigeons, so to speak.
And, the last time that there was a nuclear test, did strike quite the reaction from the Trump administration as well, with the fire and fury. So, we still have quite a lot to expect on that front. But what we need to expect as of now with this statement is, will North Korea undertake some concrete military tests in the future?
Yeah.
That's still something that needs to be wait and see.
Right. So it's a few hints from Kim Jong, but nothing really specific yet that we can point to.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, and then it did a bit of testing of some ballistic missiles, right?
It did on...
Or was it one? I'm not really sure what the number is.
So it conducted a strategic cruise missile test, not ballistic missile test.
So this is a cruise one. Basically, it flies like a plane.
Indeed, and it was on February 26, and, well, they announced that the current test was successfully conducted, destroying a building on Sangchuira Island off the west coast near Nampo.
I've been to Nampo. They've got that impressive West Sea barrage
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So it struck a building. We've got photographs of it in the article that people can find on the NK News website.
Mm-hmm.
And it flew a long flight, didn't it? It was the distance between launch and explosion wasn't that far.
Yeah.
But it flew for quite a long time, and it covered a lot of miles.
Yeah, so what we can see is that, there are 2 long-range cruise missiles was fired, and they flew in elliptical routes. And
which basically, for our listeners home, means an egg-shaped flight path. So around and around and around and around.
Indeed. And it covered 986 miles, so that's around 1,500 kilometers, over 132 minutes.
Okay, so it's 2 hours of flying in an egg-shaped path around and around, making circles or ellipses, and then eventually striking this small building. Do we know anything about this building? Was it a beach hut? I mean, what, changing facility?
Well, we know where it was launched from.
Yes.
The missiles were launched from a beach just outside the West Sea barrage that you were talking about. And it's just 3.9 miles, around 6 kilometers away from the target building on the island. And it sort of doubles as a tourist attraction. And it's sometimes visited by some foreign tourists in the summer.
The island, you mean, not the building. Okay. Do we know if the building was purpose-built to be destroyed by the cruise missiles?
Some satellite imagery shows that some infrastructure development on the island was perpetrated over the past year, and it was likely for some continued missile testing like the one we saw last week.
Okay, all right. So you build a building and then you bomb it. All right, interesting. Now, did North Korea release a statement about these 2 missiles? I mean, we know they said it was successful, but did they say anything, what it was all about?
Well, there was Kim Jong Un's message. Rodong Shinmun did carry Kim Jong Un's message, and it said, Kim stated that the launch was meant to signal North Korea's nuclear retaliatory capability to its adversaries and demonstrate the combat readiness of North Korea's nuclear forces.
Right, readiness. Okay, that's a word that armies love. So basically, North Korea is ready for all contingencies with these cruise missiles. Right. Any condemnation from, I don't know, South Korea, the United Nations,
well,
the United
that's the
States?
interesting thing. So South Korea's response measures, so the Joint Chiefs of Staff, they did not announce the test in real time, but later claimed to have detected signs of the launch in advance. South Korea and U.S. intelligence are now analyzing, or have analyzed, detailed specifications of the missiles. And it was just the usual that the Joint Chiefs of Staff, then emphasizing that the ROK-US military alliance remains ever ironclad and remains on high alert to counter any North Korean provocation.
How do you launch a cruise missile? This is one of those things that has to be vertically erected and then it goes from a standing position like a rocket, or does it take off like a plane? Do you know anything about that?
I'm not quite 100% sure, but at the same time, I think that the North Korea has used quite a diverse range of methods to go ahead with its missile launches, not just cruise missiles. You do need to understand the variety of their methods.
Sometimes mounted on the back of a truck. Yeah, okay. All right, I think we've covered that story. What should we talk about next? Yeah,
so North Korea opened its first modern general hospital, and it was after a 5-year delay.
That's a long time coming. We remember in the first year of COVID 2020 that Kim Jong Un, I think he attended the groundbreaking ceremony or something. I mean, it was a lot of hoo-ha, a lot of hoopla, I should say, in the North Korean media about building this general hospital in Pyongyang. It's supposed to be a large state-of-the-art facility. And now, finally, after 5 years, it's open.
Yeah, so it's set to open and in October 2025.
Oh, gosh, so we're still a bit ahead of time. Okay.
Yeah, so Kim Jong Un, he toured the facility just last week. He called the buildings flawless, and though the hospital still lacks considerable medical equipment.
Yes.
So the original timeline, Kim, he launched the project around March 2020. He demanded completion by October of the same year. But five years later, we're still right here with the general hospital set to open this October. And the construction issues or satellite imagery that suggested some of the construction issues, by late 2020, it suggested that the building structure was largely complete, but state media stopped mentioning the hospital's progress. And the government, or the North Korean government, has not provided clear reasons for the delay, though we suspect that sanctions, financial priorities, and equipment shortages are pretty likely factors.
Yeah, although at the same time, it's interesting that North Korea is able to build these apartment blocks in a very, very short time, right? Part of the city redevelopment, what's that number again? 20 and 20 or 2010?
2010.
The
Yeah.
2010 project, which is building up 20 cities in 10 years, something like that. Yeah. So it's able to do some impressive building feats in a short order. But for some reason, this hospital was just kind of languishing for a long time.
Indeed. And, as you just mentioned it, under the 2010 project, it sort of aligns with Kim Jong Un's sort of healthcare plans and, bolstering North Korea's sort of lax healthcare system. And he's vowed to build one general hospital per city and county within a decade. And a pilot project in 2025 will construct 3 hospitals in Gangdong County, which is near Pyongyang, Ryonggang County, and Kusong, key weapons production hub.
Right. So the opening of this general hospital in Pyongyang is, it's presumably great news for people who live in or near Pyongyang. But if you're around the country, you'll be waiting a little bit longer for those new hospitals to open up.
And state media, it does seek to promote North Korea's free healthcare system and how it's modernizing its healthcare. But the reality is that free healthcare no longer exists in practice in North Korea, and patients or reports have come out that patients must pay bribes to receive that treatment. Yeah. And even in the capitals, hospitals often they lack running water, medicine, reliable electricity. So there's still a long way to go.
There's a long way to go, and we even have heard of doctors having to grow their own cotton to make bandages and. Reusing beer bottles for IVs, drips, and things like that. So that's, it needs, that medical system needs a lot of work there. All right, and what have we got left? Oh, yes, we're on to the final defense that Yoon Suk-yeol gave in his impeachment trial.
Indeed, so the impeachment trial has been going on for the past few months, and the South Korean president, or the suspended South Korean president, Yoon Suk-yeol, he made this final defense before the Constitutional Court last week. He justified his decision to impose martial law on December 3rd, where we were all back online.
Yeah.
And Yoon claimed his actions were necessary to counter North Korean espionage and accused the opposition Democratic Party of following Pyongyang's directives.
Okay, and this is an oft-repeated claim, not only by suspended President Yoon Suk-yeol, but also by the right-wing YouTubers in Korea. Did he give any evidence to suggest that there are, in fact, North Korean elements here?
Well, he did make quite a new claim. He alleged that North Korea directed the DP to the Democratic Party to politicize the 2022 Itaewon crowd crush disaster, which claimed 159 lives. Young lives, and he claimed Pyongyang orchestrated rallies calling for his resignation and used affiliated groups like the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, which was in some of its members were prosecuted for allegedly going into a North Korean spy ring to undermine his government.
Okay, what do you think? Do you buy this?
No, I don't, and I think his statements appear aimed at sort of shoring up his hardline conservative support ahead of the court's final ruling of his impeachment in March.
But is he really trying to convince the judges so that they might, overturn the impeachment and send him back to the presidency?
Well, there's still a chance, we can't rule out the possibility of him going back and being reinstated as president. But, the chances are quite lax.
I know, but it would be interesting to see if the judges are actually persuaded by this argument, because I don't see any evidence yet either.
But Yoon's persistence in linking these opposition forces to North Korea, as I mentioned before, he was appearing to have sort of a political strategy. So he is trying to solidify his base among hardline conservatives, sort of shift the opinion towards him. But whether that will resonate with the judges and the legal ruling is still yet to be decided.
Now, listeners might be thinking this is it's such domestic news, it's South Korea relevant only. Why talk about this in the NK News podcast?
This Yoon's imposition of martial law is quite a major political event, regardless of whether it is domestic or international. Martial law in 2024, especially in an established democracy like South Korea's, is not something that you really expect to see in your news feed in the morning. And, when you see Yoon's persistence in sort of linking the opposition to North Korea and explaining North Korea as a key issue and a reasoning behind his imposition of martial law, that's still something that remains to be debated as sort of a legitimate argument.
Right, and we can put that in the list of, the long list of actions committed by both governments of North and South Korea in which they politicize, and point to an outside threat, saying, it's the other side that's trying to ruin our country, and this is why we have to take these steps.
Indeed, yeah. And I think that, when Yoon talks about these opposition-backed budget cuts, which were a major part of his martial law decree, and he said that they directly weaken national security against North Korea by targeting South Korea's reconnaissance capabilities, missile development, and the drone defense. But the budget records from his government, they contradict his argument. So the Yoon administration, they itself pushed for a 485.2 billion won cut to reconnaissance funding for 2025 in their proposal submitted in 2024.
Wait. So Yoon himself or his ministers recommended a cut to the reconnaissance budget.
Yes.
And are now pointing to the Democratic Party and blaming them for the cuts.
Yeah, and the other military budget reductions that Yoon argued were from the opposition. They were approved with bipartisan support, including Yoon's People Power Party lawmakers within the National Assembly's Defense Committee.
Well, that doesn't sound right. Okay, you got some explaining to do there, President Yoon. Last question, would you care to speculate when might the Constitutional Court issue a finding on this, on the impeachment issue?
Well, Yoon's final defense was last week, which gives a 2-week period for the Constitutional Court to decide on a decision. So we're expecting something to come out in between March 10th and March 13th.
There you go. Okay, all right. Well, stand by, listeners. Thanks for coming on the show again, Joon Ha. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Looking to stay informed about South Korea's fast-evolving political, business and cultural landscape? Join us on Korea Pro, the go-to resource for in-depth analysis expertly curated by top-tier professionals. And now you can pick the membership level that best suits your needs, thanks to our new subscription packages. Starting at just $199 annually, you can access daily analysis and our weekly podcast. Or try our premium membership package, which offers additional perks such as executive briefings, monthly reports and forecasts, networking receptions and event opportunities, as well as much, much more. To find the best fit for you, just head to signup.koreapro.org and become a member today.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our podcast episode for today. Our thanks go to Brian Betts and Alana Hill for facilitating this episode, and to our post-recording producer genius Gabby Magnuson, who cuts out all the extraneous noises, awkward silences, bodily functions, and fixes the audio levels. Thank you, and listen again next time.